Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for session number 4. This one is about optimizing your digital channel for success. And we have 3 panelists on today. We have a lot of information to get out there. So I'm just going to get right into some of the ground rules for today. The first one is audio. We want to make sure that you can hear us loud and clear. So you have a couple of options on the GoToWebinar panel, whether computer audio or phone. If you can't hear us clearly, please choose which one works best for you. The most important one in the middle here, ask us questions. The GoToWebinar platform has a questions panel, and this is an open panel discussion. It doesn't work without your questions at the end. So please feel free and submit your questions on the way through, and we're going to devote some time towards the end to answering hopefully all of them. If not, we'll reach back out afterwards. And finally, the question we always seem to get is, will I get a recording, a copy of the recording? That's an absolute yes. I try to do my best to get them out same day, but we definitely are going to send a recording along with a copy of these slides as well. Take into account that what we're talking about today, these are just considerations. Management One is not a marketing agency. We are a merchandise intelligence firm. But we're going to offer considerations in deciding on action steps in your business. We work with hundreds of retailers and retail experts, so we have the unique advantage of hearing their stories. And even the panelists that are on today, we're going to show you strategies and examples of what your peers are achieving. But you always have to keep in mind the constraints and the situation for your business. Everything we're presenting is informational, and we understand that facts and circumstances vary from business to business. So if we're talking about websites, if we're talking about logistics, always consult with your web developers or a professional logistics, advertising agencies before moving forward. As I said, who is Management One if you're not familiar? Thank you for joining us if you're not. Our purpose is to provide financial security for our people, our clients, and our affiliates. Our focus is merchandise intelligence and education for independent retailers. I mean, we're retailers first. We're not a startup tech company trying to fit the tool around a retail solution, actually the other way around. We have 33 years in the industry as retailers, and we've developed processes and software to help make that a reality for our customers. I wanted to introduce our panel today. We're going to have a chance to speak with them individually because I think they each bring a unique vision to today's topic. First off, we're talking to Mike Baranoff, president of Footwear, Etc. We're going to be speaking with Candice Daniolo, founder and CEO of Pet Boss Nation, and Mr. Josh Orr, owner of Streamline Retail. I found this quote from Apple CEO Tim Cook because I felt like it really embodied the theme of this entire session today. And Tim says, it's hard to edit. It's hard to stay focused. And yet we know we'll only do our best work if we stay focused. So, the hardest decisions we made are all the things not to work on, frankly. And I thought it was a poignant quote here because many retailers didn't even have a website before March. And COVID-19 kind of forced a lot of people into this digital space when they weren't ready to. They had a lot of new tools, new processes thrown at them, and what are you going to focus on? What are you not going to focus on? There's limited resources, and part of what we're going to discuss today is what's most impactful to your business. The other thing is, now that your store is reopening, it's really easy to just kind of retreat back into the safe space of focusing on your storefront, but you want to make sure and not take your foot off the gas and really charge ahead with some of the digital things that you started. I wanted to also introduce our CEO here at Management One, Mark Weiss. Mark, you said you also had some commentary about this quote as well. I believe you're on mute though.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Nico. It's a great quote, and thanks for finding it. So one of the things that I want to impress upon retailers is that you keep the foot on the pedal and think about your business, we're going to talk about this as we get into this, as omni-channel, and that that you're going to drive a certain amount of business from your brick and mortar and a certain amount from your digital footprint. And they're both important, they're both relevant, and we're going to get into some of the details of that today. So I think it was actually commentary that I've been presenting at these shows in February and in January and February. So I think about staying focused doesn't mean when we talk about high value assets and high value considerations, we talked about in the first of our second series of webinars. This is a high value asset that paying attention to is critical. And we're glad to have Mike and Candace and Josh sharing their thoughts and information with us today.
Absolutely. Before we go to the panel, I wanted to set the stage a little bit with a couple of things that really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Obviously, with the shutdown, online sales have just exploded. Forbes put out an article showing that revenue growth is up 68% as of mid-April. Some retailers are seeing Black Friday type of numbers on their sites. What I thought was really interesting was payments.com did a survey, and 82% of all their consumers surveyed are shopping with merchants that have either added or improved their digital capabilities since the pandemic began. So they're definitely taking notice. Of those 82%, not surprisingly, 40% are doing so because they fear the virus, but I found it more interesting. Number 2 and 3 find it more convenient, and they say it's faster. Those ideals aren't going away now that stores are starting to reopen. As Mark mentioned, I took this right out of your presentation at Coterie, Mark. Back in January, I thought it was prophetic that Doug Stevens in Retail Dive put out this quote. He said, "In the future, all but the most convenience-based retailers will begin to use their stores as media to acquire customers and their media platforms as stores to transact sales." So put another way, media is now a cost of sales and rent is now a cost of customer acquisition. Retailers that miss or ignore this shift will do so at their peril. I thought that was really interesting in January, seeing that just a couple of months later, people are going to be thrust into this digital space before they're ready. But now that we're here, and now that your store may be reopening, as Mark mentioned before, this isn't the time to take your foot off the gas. A lot of our retailers have made great strides in the e-com space, and you have to realize it's not going anywhere. Just because your doors opened yesterday doesn't mean you're getting 100% of that traffic back. As the payments survey indicated, consumers have become accustomed now. I certainly have. I don't see the need to go back into a store right away. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and if I can pick something up curbside or online, I'll do that. And many consumers believe that this pandemic will last 12 months. That's a long time to focus on your digital. So use that time to really expand your knowledge. If you already had a website, refine it. We're going to talk about a few strategies moving ahead here. Mark also mentioned omni-channel. Omni-channel has been a rising trend in retail, but I think COVID-19 really shortened that timeline for a lot of folks. It took it off the back burner and focused us to really embrace the omni-channel ideology. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later as well with the panelists. But retailers need to account, if you're going to embrace these new strategies, make sure that you account for the strain on your resources. Some of our retail clients are very small and they only have a limited amount of resources. They can't tackle every single thing under the sun. So focus on what's most impactful to your business. So let's get digital. I'm going to talk to Mike Baranoff first. And the first thing I want to talk about is the cost of doing business online. There's always a myth that e-com is so much cheaper than brick and mortar, and it's not always the case. Mike, I wanted you to share with the audience how long your website has actually been live. That was the best thing for me to hear when I was talking with you.
We've had a website up since 1996.
And just since I didn't get a chance to introduce you person to person before, just explain to folks a little bit about footwear, etc.
Sure thing. We are a shoe store chain in California. We have 7 stores in the San Francisco Bay Area and 4 stores in San Diego.
Excellent. And you mentioned so the mid 90s for the website.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're well aware of a lot of the costs on here, but you're in a unique spot because you already had a site developed. But COVID-19 really forced you guys to focus heavily on refining that site and building services around that site that tied back to brick and mortar. Can you talk a little more on that?
Yeah, definitely. We had been working on the buy online, pick up in store model. It's something was on our roadmap before COVID even hit, and we had launched that about a month before the store shut down. And it was great having it in place. The customers really embraced it, especially leading up to the shutdown when people were already starting to get wary of going into the stores. And since we've reopened, that's been a huge piece for us. People really like that, whether they're coming in the store or whether they want to do curbside. It's been a big win for us in terms of giving the customer that extra, channel to complete their transaction.
And when did your stores reopen?
That is a good question. We reopened the stores about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And have you noticed any major shifts from online to the stores? I'm assuming, I don't want to speak for you, but what we've heard from a lot of other retailers is that the traffic is not coming back in day one.
Yeah, it's been a very slow ramp up. We definitely were seeing a lot of our store customers purchasing on our website while we were closed. And since we've started to reopen, those customers that are more comfortable to come into the store, are coming in now. So the web sales have softened just a little bit on straight ship to, but the buy online, pick up in store, curbside is still going strong.
That's great. Yeah, we're going to touch on that in just a little bit because that is one of the major strategies that a lot of our retailers are seeing. The main thing I wanted to put out here is that a lot of retailers are finding out the hard way. Jumping online comes with a variety of different costs. Fortunately, some of the newer platforms like Shopify and others take care of a lot of the real estate issues, some of the PCI compliance issues, but content creation is still going to be a pretty massive cost that people have to take into account, as well as advertising. You're in a much larger pool in the digital space, so how you're going to allocate your budget towards advertising is a big thing. I put really quickly in bold red for our retail clients that are already using Google Shopping ads. Google is actually running a free promo for any Google Merchant Center users. So if you are on that platform, I highly recommend you go and check out with your Google representative. Starting in April, they were doing Google Shopping ads for free.
And Nico, I would add in, definitely, as you mentioned, the content creation, is important, and having good data is important. That's probably the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Good product data, so you can feed all of your data out to the various channels. There's so many options now between Google and all the different, Amazon, all the different places out there, Facebook, that you can feed your data into. So having good data is very important in there.
And monitoring that data as well.
Yeah.
So that's a good segue actually to speak with Josh Orr of Streamline Retail, because Josh, this is right in your wheelhouse. I wanted to give you a couple of minutes just to introduce yourself, and we'll jump into what Streamline does.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Josh Orr. I run a company called Streamline Retail. We help brick and mortar retailers launch and grow their online presence. So I think this definitely fits within what we're trying to do.
Yeah, the biggest thing, I found this article from McKinsey that they ran last month, and customer expectations are rising for digital channels along measures such as site speed, stability, delivery times. Like I mentioned, we're in a much larger pool now with digital. So to keep pace, retailers should start by designing web pages that are optimized for digital shopping. And I've actually seen you in action, Josh, on some presentations, and zero friction is probably the best way to put it. You really want to go from entry point to conversion with as little friction as possible. And you
Yeah.
have some great tools, some great design tips for folks. And the more I was thinking about it, I really think that people treat their homepage on their website like just walking into your storefront.
Yeah, I
And
think that is the foundational thing. And I would even maybe pull a step back from that and say to kind of get rid of the focus on the storefront. And what I mean by that is, a lot of storefronts, a lot of brick and mortar stores think that the center of their business is their store. And their store has an Instagram, and their store has a Facebook page, and their store has a website, and their store has events or whatever. And the problem is that when you try to take that online and you try to take your storefront online, the experience doesn't translate. You can't have an in-store experience by proxy. But if we can instead shift to say, okay, what if my store were a brand? What if my store was an experience? And try to take that experience on. Like when I walk into your store, what do I feel? What do I see? What does my mind go to? What lifestyle am I invited into? Those pieces are like the core of what your brand is and what it does. So how can we bottle that up? How can we bottle those pieces up and present that online, not just on a website, but also on your social channels, also in your events? And I think when you do that, you can even start to improve your in-store experience because you can be mindful of what feelings and things that you have. Excuse me, everyone. What are we wanting our customers to experience, regardless of where they come across your brand? And so online, like, now to take that to some design tips, picture like when I walk into your store, let's say I am your perfect customer. Think through like, what should I see? What should I feel? Is there a lifestyle that I'm invited into? If you open your webpage and you don't scroll at all, do you see those same things? If not, then we have adjustments to make, and that may be through your imagery, that might be through your copy. And that's that way that you're putting your best foot forward. But I think that brick and mortar stores have a unique opportunity to also feature their storefront. And I think right now, it is important to talk about safety. I don't think it should be your hero image, that big one at the top, but featured on your homepage is an invitation to come visit you in store. And you need to understand what your customer is going through during this season and speak to that. And yeah, and so can we move to the next slide real quick?
yep,
Yeah, and so if you think like that experience that we're talking about, in the same way that you probably pay attention to every little detail in your storefront, how is it merchandised? Where does the customer walk? Are there barriers? A lot of times we lose that same focus when we talk about the online experience. So when we say like, hey, aim for conversion within 3 to 5 clicks, really what we're trying to say is your website shouldn't be a rabbit trail. And I think that the easiest thing that you can think about is, one, does your navigation make it easy for someone who knows what they want to find? Like, if they want a shirt, can they get to a shirt? If they want a dress, can they get to a dress? And on the other side are people who just want to come, they're window shopping, but they're doing it online. Can we push them to curated collections, curated things that give them an experience? So if you think, that's most of your shoppers. Some people come in knowing exactly what they want in store, and some people come in wanting to browse around. We want to curate something in the exact same way online. So having navigation around your high-level categories, as well as your collections, like what is your brand about during this season? And all of these things, something that's so important is a lot of times we put together our websites on a desktop, but understanding that majority of your people are probably viewing your site on their phones. So
absolutely.
yeah, and so make this a mobile friendly experience. That can look like 15 different things, but it may mean that your image, the big one at the top, needs to be different for mobile because the text just doesn't translate. There's a lot of details that you can pay attention to here. And I think that's where being on a modern platform, Shopify being an example, is they make, like, to be on those platforms, you have to be mobile, optimized for mobile. And so that's an easy place to start. And when we say to monitor bounce rates, really what we're saying is, every brand, or every time someone visits your site, like I argue that your enemy is not Amazon, your enemy is the back button. And people are asking themselves, is this brand for me? Is this product for me? Is this for me? And that they answer that question quickly. And it's not intentional. They just do. And so when they land on your site, they're quickly going to say, is this site for me or not? And they're going to click back very quickly. If you're seeing a high bounce rate, it means that people are answering the question, this isn't for me, which means you need to evaluate, either are you getting the right people on your site, or is your site not speaking to the right people? So I would evaluate those two. And then when we talk about utilizing automations, this can be basic stuff. At a bare minimum, if you don't have an abandoned cart email set up, this is that email that if they add something to your cart, they should get a series of emails. You're leaving money on the table. That's an easy thing to add. It's built into most e-commerce platforms. You can use some email tools that make that a little more ninja. But at the basic level, you can have one email that goes out after saying, like, hey, you forgot something, come finish your purchase. So I think those are the things that you want to be paying attention to right now.
I definitely agree. And there's a lot of folks that are on this webinar, I'm sure today, a lot of our retail clients, they just don't sell online. They don't have a complete e-com package, and that's okay. When we talk about conversion, maybe that conversion is just a phone call, or maybe that conversion is just a visit to your store. So you have to design your site, you have to design your social, you have to design your calls to action to push the traffic where you want it to go. I think that's what we were saying with set them on a journey. If you don't do e-com, there's still a destination for them. And if that's your store, send them towards your store. When we talk about monitoring bounce rates, Mike mentioned this earlier, look at your data. That doesn't mean that everybody has to become a Google Analytics expert overnight, but to Josh's point, if you're seeing bounce rates increase on your homepage, then you probably want to redesign your homepage, or at least redesign that top of fold message, what they're seeing when they first load your page up. The other thing that people really need to be mindful of on the site as well is, how are you linking your specific store to the site? I see a lot of people, you go to their contact page and they have their address listed, which is fine. You want people to find your store, but instead of listing just to your address, use your Google business listing. Online business listings are really powerful tools to connect people from your digital into your storefronts. And Mike, I pulled yours off as an example because I thought you guys were killing it. A lot of people don't realize that Google business listings implemented a bunch of different COVID-19 specific services that you can put right on your business. So if you look here as an example, one of Mike's stores, they're showing you right off the bat, we're doing in-store shopping. We have curbside pickup, we have delivery. It says closed because I did this screenshot late at night, but put your adjusted hours. Showcase any new services that you have. And when people are looking, to Josh's point, if they're looking at your website on a mobile device, they can just click right off the bat and get some directions to your store. They can look at reviews. You have the ability to add store photos. So just putting an address or a phone number is not going to cut it. Really, really leverage the digital strengths that you have available to you. And Google's not the only one. Yeah.
Sorry, the best part about all of this, it's free.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the easiest one to mention. A lot of them are free. Google just happens to be the most powerful one, and I'm surprised that it's still free. I did a webinar back in March with Crystal Vokatis from Crystal Media, and this is right in her wheelhouse. There's about 6 top directories like Yelp, Bing, Yellow Pages, and if you don't have your business updated on these listings, then you're missing out on an opportunity. People are going to find your store using a variety of different methods. And it's worth going. We have a link in the slides that we'll include for you. It's worth going to Crystal Media's site and just getting a free scan to see where you might have holes in your data. And Candace actually suggested NextPaw. Can you describe that one briefly, Candace?
Sure. NextPaw relates only to the pet industry, but they're going to be able to do for you what Crystal Media can do as well, and that is kind of give you that scan to make sure that your hours and address and your company information is correct all over the internet. One of the things that I've learned with NextPaw, now they make mobile friendly websites. They've got a back end dashboard that helps pet businesses with messaging with their clients, asking for instant reviews. And there's one thing I've learned with from NextPaw as well, that the review function with Google is so important, but it's not just about that, getting all the reviews up front if you don't have any. It's actually keeping a constant flow of current reviews coming to your Google page. Will always be beneficial for you.
Yeah, you have to curate that channel and you have to nurture it for sure. And that's another resource that retailers are going to have to look at. How are they nurturing that review channel? And we could probably spend an entire hour on just that topic. I wanted to touch briefly on, before we left websites, Josh was talking about, using a mobile phone to look at sites. You really have to look at how quickly your site loads. A lot of platforms now, like Shopify, they do a really good job of managing asset load rates. But for legacy sites, people that still have some of the older school platforms, it's worth looking at the free Google speed test. We have a link in our slides here as well. And again, you don't have to be a laser focused web developer to just see that the banner image on your home page is 500 kilobytes and it takes 2 seconds to download. It's pretty easy to just upload a new image that's only 50 kilobytes. 2.7 seconds is pretty much the ideal benchmark. So anything you can do to shave down that time, that's what we really want to focus on with this particular slide. So let's get social. And we invited Candace on here mainly because you had some really interesting ideas with some of the clients that you work with. I didn't get a chance to let you introduce yourself before, though.
There's no problem. I'm happy to be here. So I founded a company called Pet Boss Nation, and we are a global collaborative helping support local small businesses in the pet industry make more money, have more fun, find more time, all of the things that we want in life, right? I'm a former Management One client as well, former retailer in the pet industry. And so what I've really enjoyed is helping our clients use social media, specifically mostly Facebook, but to get to use it as their digital, like virtual storefront, not a digital storefront, but a virtual storefront. Because many of our stores, they are smaller and they didn't have the online store ready to go right away. So doing things like Facebook Lives, like we see here, have been very beneficial, and I'm happy to go deeper in that too. But
we're actually, I mean, we could spend an entire hour talking just about Facebook Live, but you had a really good point right before we started this call. You reached out to your network just to see what type of impact they're seeing from a few of these strategies. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, with specifically the bullet point that's on here about, or maybe it's on the next one, but FaceTime, which isn't even a social media platform here, but just using FaceTime and Messenger to do like private shopping experiences. What we found in the pet stores is that their average sale was almost double to triple what it would have normally have been in the store. And also a lot of times what they found was that it was super convenient for the new pet parents. So I could also see that in other industries. If there's a new baby, or I don't know, maybe someone's moving to a new home and they need to decorate their home. There's lots of ways that you can use the FaceTime apps, and even Facebook Messenger. You can video stream through that now too, and you can like do a virtual tour through your store. It takes more time, but the average sale is, at least in the pet industry, has been $250 to $300.
That's great. The other thing, especially with these platforms, the video is great, a lot of the posts are great, but really leverage the back end of those platforms too. That's why we put here on this slide, you have the opportunity to list all of your new services right on Facebook. You can, if you don't sell online, that's fine. You can still list your services, you can book direct appointments, you can set up digital gift cards. There's a lot of ways to leverage these social media sites that aren't so front-facing.
Nico, I wanted to add on to what Candace said, and talking to a lot of specialty apparel retailers as well. Their virtual selling was anywhere from 2 to 3 times what the average sale in the store was, which it's circumstantial, but it's compelling evidence of, and maybe it's the focus of the customer and the preparation. I'm not sure yet, but virtual selling can certainly, especially for people looking to build traffic in the store because people aren't quite comfortable to go out shopping yet or may not come in yet. Don't feel that your salespeople can't be trained and taught in virtual selling. It can be a very powerful way to use your digital footprint to stay connected and build business with your customers.
Yeah, I mean, even off of what Josh was bringing up earlier about how your store needs to have, or your digital, footprint needs to have, still showcase the experience and a curated selection, that is what Facebook Lives and social selling is all about, is creating an experience. And our clients have started doing things like the mystery bags, selling mystery bags on a regular basis. One client, the Green Spot in Omaha, they compiled mystery bags, which is surprise, things that the customer doesn't know what's going to be inside the bag. They sold them in advance on their website. And then they used a Facebook Live kind of like game show style to be able to sell the bags or like open up the bags, some of the bags, and then they would spin a prize wheel. So everybody who purchased a surprise bag or mystery bag got a chance to spin on the wheel. Well, they sold 50 bags in advance, and so they had nothing to sell when they went to go live. So I said, why don't you start selling more mystery bags for the next chance, for the next time you guys go live? Maybe 2 weeks from now, we'll do another mystery bag game show. So on that live, where they had pre-sold 50 bags, spinning the wheel, they sold another 80 bags of mystery bags for the next time.
That's awesome.
And so they knew how much money they could have up in front to go buy the product that they needed even to fill the mystery bag. And then on that next live, they sold gift certificates while they were on that live, because they didn't want to do any more mystery bags. So they just sold, drove traffic to buy gift cards on their website.
That's great. We also had one of our affiliates just right now, Doug Arvanitis, said that they have a client who did 36,000 in 2 days off of a Zoom trunk show. So there's so many different platforms that people are using now, and it's really up to the retailer to decide what is in their best interest, where is their audience, and what do we have the capacity to do. I think, gamification, raffles, there's technologies such as Comment Sold that allows people to make sales directly in the comments within Facebook. It's really going to depend on where you want to find your audience and how you want to connect them back to your store. We had somebody post a question asking, what is a CTA? It's a call to action. What do you want them to do? Is it buy now? Is it book an appointment? That call to action, I see a lot of social posts where somebody has a new product, like a brand new shirt or a brand new necklace, and it's just a picture of the image and that's it. You want to give them a call to action, something to do with that photo, whether it's visit your website, book an appointment, go to an event. You have to continue the conversation, whether it's pushing them back to the store or keeping them online to close the sale. In March, we did a webinar that we were talking about the Facebook product catalog. People can upload all of their products with 5,000 characters in the description right into the back end of their Facebook. And now, just on May 19th, Facebook is upping the ante and they're putting a full shopping platform onto their accounts. Instagram as well. I think Instagram is coming up a little later in the summer, but this is something that retailers really, really need to look into as well. If you're not quite ready to go full e-commerce on your website, this is a great way, a great primer for you to test it out and see if it's right for your business, because other retailers are going to jump into this. Josh, yesterday, I think you mentioned that a couple of your clients have already touched on at least the Facebook portion of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such an easy way, especially if you have no online store. This is such a low-hanging fruit way to be able to launch online quickly without having to be on Shopify or another platform. And though you want to get there, though you probably want to get on those platforms that are a little more scalable, this is an easy way to immediately start selling.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they develop that. They're also, they don't have them yet, but they're planning new integrations with folks like Shopify and BigCommerce as the summer rolls out. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So let's talk fulfillment. I want to go back to Mike at Footwear Etc. because this is right in your wheelhouse. Explain to the audience a little bit about how Footwear Etc. got started with logistics and what actually happened with the break off of the company in the beginning.
Sure thing. So yeah, back in 96, I think it was, we were approached by a family friend who had this idea of selling shoes on the internet. And my father-in-law, who started the business, thought it was a crazy idea to do this. Who's going to buy shoes on a computer? And so he said, I don't want to be part of your business, but I will. I don't want to invest in your business, but I will definitely help you with your business. So he created the website, and the family friend created the website and listed our products from our stores and started selling them. And eventually, we introduced them directly to the brands, and they went on, rebranded themselves as Zappos, and went their own way, and we went our own way.
That seemed to work out pretty well for Zappos.
Eventually,
yeah. But a lot of retailers, they're being forced into this online space. Their store was closed. They had to really start looking into shipping the product out, and that added extra cost. I mean, even FedEx and UPS are already raising some of the rates on the larger volume shippers. So you have to account for that in your margins. Can you handle that? Are you looking more towards a 3PL or a 4PL solution if business ramps up on you before the store opens? The biggest thing to consider, and again, this is something that Footwear Etc. really embraced, was all of the curbside services. BOPIS, Boris, BOPAC. 59% of consumers polled in April say that they're likely to continue choosing curbside pickup due to the pandemic. So how are these companies going to leverage their digital sites, whether it's social, their website? How are you going to tie these two things together? We showed you a little bit before with how Footwear Etc. is using the Google business listings. I'm sure you guys also have that on your website as well, Mike. But you really want to over message these services. The other thing, now that stores are reopening, if you have a client or a customer that's scheduled to pick up curbside, let them know that your store is open. That doesn't mean that they just have to come pick up that one item and then they're out of here. If you're making a sale, use that as a sales opportunity. Mark was talking before about really training your sales staff. How are you messaging to them that your store is open? Don't pick it up on the curb. Come on in. We have other items for you.
Right. I mean, we're definitely seeing a increase in the AOV for those customers that come into the store. They buy an item or two on the website. They want to come pick it up in the store. A lot of them pick the BOPIS option just because they want to come get it faster. But they come in, and then it's our sales associates are trained to try to sell them other things or complementary things. And we also have implemented, when we rolled this out, we are doing full commission. Our employees are on commission. We're doing full commission for the BOPIS orders. So when somebody comes in and says, I'm here to pick up my order, they're getting paid commission on that transaction.
That's great. We had a question come in just right now. Their head is spinning. What are all these acronyms? So BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store. Boris, buy online, return in store. And BOPAC is relatively new, buy online, pick up at the curb. So the other thing we didn't mention before, we had it listed in our costs on websites, but if people are going to transition to online only, they're done with their storefront, you have to really be concerned with buy online, return in store, because we have seen return rates increase on the digital space. I don't know if you've seen that as well in shoes, Mike, but especially with apparel, people are treating their homes like fitting rooms, and they're buying a lot of product, trying them on, and then returning what they don't need. So you really have to account for the increase in returns if that's going to be your strategy.
The buy online, pick up in store helps with that. For our space, people come in, they can try the shoes on. They don't have to, bring it to them, see if it fits. They don't have to bring the store to them. They can still come in a more convenient way.
Yeah.
Sure.
And enhancing that with new digital technology. We have here at the bottom implementing SMS, is text messaging. There is a way to just directly hit people's phones. A lot of folks love the email platform. Text messages actually have open rates that just crush email. It's a little trickier to maneuver, but for example, if somebody buys something online, pick up at the curb, send them a text to let them know that their order's ready. Also send them a text and let them know that your store is open. They can come right in and pick it up at the store. These aren't expensive mediums to use. I think you can send text messages for pennies on the dollar. There's also other user experience enhancements that people can use to automate the service as well. But I would really encourage our audience here to explore what works best for them and what they have the capacity to take on. Before we get to questions from the audience, some of the folks are saying that we use entirely too many acronyms here. We're trying to distill the information down to as simple as we possibly can to make it for you. So the other thing that we didn't touch on really quickly was supply chain. In a perfect world, a lot of these digital services are going to work for your business. And how are you going to account for the inventory that's going out of your store? Can you speak to a little bit of the supply chain side of it, Mike?
Yeah, in terms of just the shipping.
Well, we mentioned,
part
yeah,
of it.
we mentioned the buy online, return in store, pick up at the curb. How are you guys negotiating all of the various transactions, where the inventory is going?
Got it. All of the inventory is in the stores. The inventory is all tied in with our point of sale system, and it's creating tickets for them to pull the items, and then the customers are notified. We call them, they get an email that their order is ready to be picked up, and then we fulfill it in the point of sale system, whether they do it at curbside or in the store.
Gotcha.
Have you found your shipping costs have gone down with curbside rather than having to ship it to the customer?
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to interject back on the shipping page, which is that using the buy online, pick up in store, of course, saves us on shipping. Shipping costs are brutal and constantly going up every year. So we're even talking right now about incentivizing the customers to do buy online, pick up in store for our local customers, so that we can save on those shipping costs, because it kills us. It's much better if they come in the store and there's no shipping involved. They get it faster, and it's better for us too.
I was reading an article last week about, the rumor that Amazon might buy JCPenney. And the obvious reason is they have a fleet of stores. Doesn't take, they can see what Walmart does with groceries as warehouses and how they're growing in the grocery business. But part of the reason that I read in this article about Amazon wanting to buy JCPenney was JCPenney, which surprised me, but you never know, has really developed really great curbside technology for their fulfillment. So they're part of the reason they're looking at JCPenney is for the technology. So curbside pickup, is something you saw starting to happen, Mike, before COVID hit. And I think now it's just going to be part of the natural order of shopping.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is always in this whole omni-channel world is to try to be available for the customer wherever and however they want to shop. So that was what pushed us into doing it in the first place. It's just giving people as many channels. I mean, there's always this notion of the store customer and the web customer, and that's just doesn't exist anymore. We have a ton of customers who shop in the store this time, and then the next time they shop online, and then the next time they're back to the store. We get a lot of reviews. People say, I love shopping in your Palo Alto store, but they just made a web purchase. So you just have to be available for them, or wherever they want to shop.
That's a great distinction. And that's really what it comes down to with omni-channel. You don't have web customers or store customers. You just have customers. And how are you reaching out to them? I think that's a great distinction. You mentioned incentivizing customers. Do you have any examples? One of our audience members was asking about that, incentivizing customers to pick up in store.
Yeah, it probably will be some form of a small discount that's a fraction of what the shipping would be, on the order. So, maybe it's a 5% discount on the order where the shipping might be 10% in our case.
And Mark mentioned Amazon. I wanted to touch briefly. We almost included a section completely on Amazon. A lot of folks think that it could be easier to fall back and I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to sell my products directly on Amazon. And if that's the strategy that you're going to take with digital, you have to understand the costs and the resources involved with selling on a platform like Amazon. I previously worked for a company that was 90% on Amazon, and if you think that it's going to make your life easier, I would strongly urge you to do a little research before jumping into that pool, because you have to be able to really have a product that has the margins to cover your Amazon fees, a lot of the advertising fees, fulfillment fees, storage fees. It's going to be a much more difficult game than you might be thinking. So I would.
And there's a lot of hoops to jump through on Amazon, and they're constantly moving the hoop forward.
That's another one. They seem to constantly change the rules.
Yeah.
And the platform itself, when you're talking about fraudulent reviews and fraudulent rankings, I mean, you're just setting yourself up for a really, really stacked game, and it's stacked against you. So that's a really tough one. Do you guys have things on Amazon right now, Mike?
We do have things on Amazon, but it is a constant fight, and it is a big challenge. And it's definitely it's definitely a very challenging place to do business.
And are you guys FBA or do you 3PL that?
We do both.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna get in trouble with acronyms.
Yeah, there you go.
Third-party logistics, sorry.
So some of the items we fulfill from our stores, we do the shipping, and some of it we send goods to Amazon's warehouse and they ship directly to the customer.
Excellent.
So one thing I was going to add, Nico, sorry, I was just going to add on the buy online, pick up in store, which is just to start small. I mean, even if you don't have the technology for it, put up a message on your website that says, you know, we'll do curbside pickup, and you could buy on the phone and pick up in the store. I mean, you don't have to have the technology. It's always better to start somewhere. Don't wait for the perfect solution. Just start small and build on it.
Yeah, to jump in on that, we have some small pet stores who just made a Google form that kind of got the basic gist and information that a customer might need, and then they shared the link to that Google form onto their social media and just pinned it at the top of their Facebook pages and put it as a banner on their websites.
That's great. That's an interesting one too.
Hey, this is first off, an e-commerce to Google the acronym. So zero judgment for people that don't what they are. Things like just you know, if you.
Hey Josh, sorry I had to mute you really quick there. There's a quick audio adjustment I think you need to make. We're getting every third word, and I want to get your point because I think I hear what you were trying to say, but I don't want to speak for you. So I would just do a quick audio checkup on that. Jump back in when we fix that, but I think you did have a good point to make. Before we talk back with Josh, I wanted to go to a couple of audience questions. The first one I would think would go to Mike, and it is talking about shoes directly. How are you handling returns with shoes with buy online, pick up in store? You touched on it briefly, but can you expand on it a little bit? And it could be with a safety measure, I think, too.
Got it. I mean, any shoes currently in the stores that are tried on or returned are left open to air out for 24 hours before putting back into circulation from the safety side of things. As far as the returns go, I mean, when somebody buys online and they come into the store to pick it up, if they choose they don't want to buy it, you know, then the refund can just be issued right there on the spot.
And you also mentioned the incentives that you were running too, which I think that was a great way to tackle it. Yeah. Somebody was asking, what's the free scan link from Crystal Media? All of the links that we put up on the screen here, we're going to include in the slides when we send them out later today. So you'll have all of that information. The same person, Jess D'Souza, was asking, how do you monitor bounce rates? And there's a lot of different ways. The easiest one on the website is with Google Analytics. It's a free tool. You just put a tiny tracking pixel up on the back end of the site, and it gives you a wealth of data about who's coming to the site, what pages they're viewing, how long they're viewing the page, entry points, exit points. It gives you a really, really robust view of the traffic on your page. Shopify does as well. They also have analytics. I don't think they go anywhere near the level of Google Analytics, but bounce rate is one of the things that you'll see right there on all landing pages. So if you, and they'll show you a graph day by day. So if you see a trend on your website over the last 30 days where that bounce rate is climbing every single day, then you have a problem on that page, and it's worth getting in and seeing what you can do, adjusting messages, imagery, whatever you need to do. Becky was asking, well, actually, before I go to that, Mike, you guys have a pretty robust website. How often, I'm assuming it's internal, how often is your team digging into the analytics on the site and making decisions based on the analytics?
Yeah, regularly. That's one of the problems in the world, especially in the e-commerce world, that there's just more data than you have time to deal with. So it's really just about finding those key metrics and analyzing them regularly, and then doing, we run different A/B testing where, you try one version versus another version to see which one improves the metric. So just constantly reviewing that data and trying to make small changes to see if you can make things better.
Excellent. Josh, are you back with us?
I am. Can you hear me better now?
Fantastic. I wanted to go back to the point you were making before.
I
think it's happening. It's happening again.
Sorry.
I really want Josh to make that point, but we have to hear him first. So I want to go to the next question here. One of them, Instagram Shop. When is that launching? I don't think they have a hard date yet. What I saw on the Facebook page was summer. So that's a pretty open-ended answer. I wish I could give you a little more data, but I would just keep track of the Facebook page and Instagram page to see exactly when they're rolling some of these out. Becky was asking, do we need to do both a web store and a Facebook Instagram store? That's a good question. I would probably speak with Candace on this as well too. My answer would be, it really depends on the resources that you have available. I don't think it's mandatory, but if you can handle, if you have the internal resources to handle both, why not? It's just another opportunity to sell products. It's like opening a new location for your store. For some of Candace's clients, Candace, your clients never really closed. So I'm curious to hear how they attacked the digital space, because it was almost like they didn't really have to, but they did anyways.
Yeah, a lot of them, they maybe had to close their store front to customers coming in the door, but they were able to do curbside or maybe minimum amount of people coming in. But really, I think it is challenging when you are selling on Facebook or you're selling on your own website and it doesn't sync to your point of sale system. There's a couple more, steps to the process to maintain the clerical side of things, but ultimately, if I'm a believer that if anyone wants to give me money for things I sell and services I provide, I'm going to jump on it and figure out a way to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a lot of that with the retailers that we work with here. It was just amazing agility that people demonstrated over the last 90 days. And
yeah, I think one of the things that business owners learned was that things they kept putting off, right? Like, I don't need a website. I don't need to worry about my website being mobile friendly. I'm afraid to do video. All of the things that they were kind of kept pushing back, they now were like, okay, we need to hustle and get this done and figure it out. And so people really stepped outside of their comfort zones to learn how to go on a Facebook Live, figure out all of the quirks with that, but then also in some situations get their online stores up and running as fast as possible.
absolutely. I wanted to also touch on one of our clients here, Maureen, was asking, how do you handle selling product in store and online at the same time? Do I have to inventory these things separately? And she's foreseeing a lot of mistakes and unhappy customers. Mike, how do you guys do it? Because you have multiple locations, you have a website.
And all of our inventory for our web store comes out of the physical stores. We don't have a separate warehouse, so it is all one shared pool of inventory. Our point of sale system and our website are talking to each other in close to real time, pushing data. So if something sells in the store, it comes down off the internet pretty quickly. Earlier on, before we had it updating this frequently, we would back inventory out. So, maybe we would do, if we would deduct 2 from everything in the store and push that quantity to the website. So if there was 5 available in the stores, we'd only push 3 to the website to help prevent overselling. It just depends how quickly things are selling in the stores and on the website.
That's a great point. We mentioned that on a slide earlier as far as keeping the data in sync, whether it's pricing, stock availability. It's going to depend on the system that you use on the back end. And do you want to handle that manually, or do you want to have the system do it for you? So it sounds like, fortunately for Mike, the system handles a lot of that for him. But it's an interesting hack that you guys put in there if you are putting 2 products up, because you're almost massaging the system a little bit to give yourself that buffer.
I mean, that's how we do things right now with Amazon, because there's a little bit more of a delay in all of the data working its way into the Amazon system. And we definitely don't want to oversell on Amazon to affect your metrics. So that's, we actively do that. And then we used to do that, for our website in the last system.
That's great. I wanted to be respectful of everyone's time. We are getting close to our 11 o'clock hour. I see a lot of questions on here that are very specific as far as, what is a good bounce rate? How many seconds or how many days do I have to delay for cart abandonment before I send an email? We're not going to touch on that today. And then I really would push people to do a lot of research into not only benchmarks for their industry, but really what makes sense for their store. You're not going to know what the best bounce rate is or the best time delay for cart abandonment until you really start getting in and just doing it. To Mike's point earlier, you just have to start testing and retesting, and you'll see what works and what doesn't work for you. For some folks, a 50% bounce rate is terrible. For other folks, a 50% bounce rate isn't that bad because they have a high supply of traffic that makes up for the loss. So it really depends on your specific situation. And
yeah, Nico.
Yep.
Sorry, I would say, don't focus on what it's supposed to be. Just focus on what yours is. Everybody's is going to be different, and just try to make yours better constantly. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. And remember that not everyone who comes to your website is looking to purchase something. So don't get overly hung up on conversion rate and all of this, because some people want to just find out, what are your hours? What's your return policy? What's in this store? They're not looking to buy something. So you have to be mindful. Everyone focuses just on shopping, but it's letting them find all the information they want to find.
That's a great point too, especially with retargeting pixels too. Just because they bounced out on one page, they do have a tracking pixel now, that's a cookie that's on their browser. So you have the opportunity of reaching out to them again, whether it's with an email or an ad, depending on the system that you have in place. I definitely wanted to thank our panel today. I'm going to move on to the next slide. We are at the 11 o'clock. If you do need to go, please do so. We are going to send out a recording. Final thoughts here. I think what we've really messaged to folks is that the digital channel exists kind of like another location for your business. It's just another way for you to reach customers and for you to get your message out to the customers. You have to nurture that connection. Tie it back to the store if you need to, focus on the sales on that channel if you need to, but think of it as just another way to connect with the customer. And there's so many different tools. I mean, we threw out, I don't know how many acronyms at you today. There's apps, there's plugins. It could make your head spin. So just allocate the resources that make sense for your bottom line. Don't wade too deeply into the weeds unless you have the capacity to do so. I wanted to do a quick plug for our next session next week. We are going to be talking about connecting to your customers. So it's almost an extension of what we're talking about today, but it's really more about how do you make that connection and establish a true connection, whether it's digital, in-store. Now that your store is open, we have a lot of folks that don't really want to come back. How are you going to make that connection to your customers? That'll be next Tuesday, same time. We'll send out an email to all of you folks as well. And again, I wanted to thank the panel for coming in. We certainly appreciate your time. We know everybody has a lot of things on the plate. We appreciate you for coming in. And if we didn't get to your specific question, we're certainly going to send out some emails as well. And we look forward to speaking with everybody again. Thank you, everyone.